According to our next guest, new reporting, former Trump officials are considering running for political office themselves, including Cliff Sims, the former deputy director for the Office of Director of National Intelligence. He has his eye on an Alabama Senate seat. Trump's Navy secretary and his ambassador to Denmark. They're all attempting a Senate run in Pennsylvania, possibly. National political reporter at The Hill, Jonathan Easley, joins me now to discuss. Good to see you, Jonathan. Thanks for joining us, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so break down what's going on here. A lot of people, I mean, if Trump's doctor can get elected to Congress, anything can happen, right? So what's going on?
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, I think the bottom line is that we knew that Trump was going to be involved in primaries. He was going to be involved in elections. And that there's a big incentive, I think, for those who were in the trenches with him over the past 4 years to sort of look at their options and wonder if they couldn't overtake some of these incumbents that are already in office, or put in a run for an open seat and potentially get his support. You get his support, especially if you're in one of these red districts or red states, and you're about halfway there. So yeah, it's been interesting to see. Now, obviously, this is early stages still for a lot of these races, but we're hearing from former Trump administration officials. You mentioned Cliff Sims at the top. Obviously, that Alabama Senate seat, deep red state, whoever gets the Republican nomination to replace Richard Shelby, who's retiring, should be able to win that race. We've already got Linda Blanchard, a former Trump donor who was his ambassador to Slovenia, is in the race. I think if Cliff Sims, the former White House aide who also worked at the Office of the Director of National Intelligence kind of late in the administration, I think if he were to get in, he'd be the favorite to get endorsements from Trump and his family, which would probably make him the front runner. He's obviously an interesting case given that he wrote a pretty explosive book on his time in the White House that at one point angered Trump. He was involved in a lawsuit with Trump, but he's been able to sort of patch up some of this. I think he's close with the family, basically, so he could be someone to watch. And then you've got, like you said, the Pennsylvania Senate, some of these House races. Trump has already backed Max Miller, who was a former White House aide, in his challenge against Congressman Gonzalez in that Ohio district. And Gonzalez is obviously one of the 10 House Republicans that voted to impeach Trump.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me, Jonathan, because it's not just the former Trump aides, but also take a look at Trump's latest endorsements. I talked about this yesterday, but I mean, people who know ideology are like, what the hell is going on here? Like, he's come out and he's said, I'm gonna, endorse all these like MAGA people. And the first two people he's endorsed in the Senate are Jerry Moran in Kansas and yesterday Tim Scott in South Carolina, who has not been a friend to Trump by any means. Sure, he voted, he didn't vote to impeach him or anything. So can you maybe take us inside the Trump endorsement machine? Because rhetoric is one thing, but in practice, he's not really endorsing people who necessarily agree with him.
Right. No, I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, we're all eagerly watching our inbox to find out who the next endorsement is going to be, and then Tim Scott came through. It's like, where did this come from? It's obviously Trump has his own methods, and there's going to be probably a mix of sort of what you'd call MAGA Trumpist candidates, but a lot of it is going to depend on the tone you took while he was in office and the relationship that you built while he was in office. I mean, Tim Scott is such an interesting case. After the debate between Trump and Biden, when Trump made the curious comments about having the Proud Boys stand back and stand by,
right.
Tim Scott, the only black Republican in the Senate, was critical of Trump, but he did it sort of in a respectful way, but Tim Scott and Trump worked very closely together on a police reform bill that ended up being blocked by Senate Democrats. So there was the relationship there, and Tim Scott wasn't someone who raised his profile as being this big anti-Trump voice. For whatever reason, Trump liked him. And, I think early in the cycle, you're probably going to see some of these easier endorsements. I mean, Tim Scott wasn't going to face a primary challenger.
Yeah, right.
Jerry Moran, this kind of thing. So it's probably just easier for Trump to get some of these endorsements out of the way before he gets into the ones that are going to be a little bit stickier or more controversial.
Well, this is the other thing, too, is like, he talked a lot, but he didn't actually go after McConnell in that CPAC speech, which some people thought he was going to do. Yeah, he issued that statement. I mean, what are the general indications, outside of the people who actually voted to impeach him, who else is he going to primary? Do you think? Anyone?
I mean, that's a good question. Right now, my instinct would say it's probably going to stay focused on those who voted to impeach. Getting behind challengers to Adam Kinzinger and some of these others. I think there's a hope definitely on McConnell's side that some of this blows over as much as it can, and that there's not this all-out Republican civil war that's not going to help. It's going to make Rick Scott's life very difficult at the head of the NRSC. I was just watching an interview with Tom Emmer, who's the House campaign chief this cycle, saying that if he were to talk to Trump, he would tell him about how a Republican civil war is not helpful. But I mean, Trump says he's committed to helping Republicans win majorities in the House and Senate. If that's his end goal, there's going to be some intra-party fights along the way. But by and large, I think Republicans would be getting behind most of the same candidates and most of the incumbents that are seeking office. So I think there's a hope that once sort of the heat from that pretty intense confrontation between McConnell and Trump dies down a little bit, that the party will largely be on the same page, with some very interesting battles between those who voted to impeach and the pro-Trump candidates that are certain to primary them.
Yeah, well, really interesting analysis there, Jonathan. Appreciate it, man.
All right, thanks.
Great. Coming up, Democrats in New York, they stripped Governor Andrew Cuomo's emergency powers amid the governor's multiple scandals. New York Assemblyman Ron Kemp discusses Cuomo's fate. That's when Rising continue.